everybody. I'm going to do a little programming with Scratch. This is going to be a walkthrough of a program called Mr. Wiggly's Dance. The walkthroughs I'm going to be doing this semester all come from a textbook called Scratch 2.0 Programming for Teens by Jerry Lee Ford. So I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due. These are not my original programs. Yeah, they're good learning programs, and so I've created PowerPoint walkthroughs for my students, and now what I want to do is create some video walkthroughs as well. So throughout the semester, I'm going to stream the walkthroughs on Twitch, and then hopefully upload what I get onto YouTube if the stream and the video recording goes well. So that's kind of the plan. We'll see sort of how this all shakes out, and we'll go from there. So the basics of this program are we've got a song that's playing, we've got some movement that's happening, and our little character is a little shy, a little embarrassed, doing his little dance. So basically when the green flag clicks, that sounds a little loud, but he moves back and forth on the stage, and then changes color effects, decide whether or not to go again, and then keep going. So that's what the finished product looks like. So let's see how we get there. All right. So step one, Scratch. For those of you not familiar with Scratch, it's a really good way to just learn programming basics. There's a lot of cool programs that can be made down here. There's always tons of neat little programs and things that people are doing with Scratch, but we're just starting with the basics today. So we're going to start, create a new program, okay, and this is going to be Mr. Wiggly's Dance. And this is the live version. As we saw in the program, there's a couple things we need to do at the start, which is we need to change out this sprite for another sprite, and we need to add a background. Okay, so let's start with the background. So I'm going to click on the backdrop, and then I'm going to click here on New Backdrop, and I want to choose a backdrop from the library. Okay. The one we want is indoors. It's called the chalkboard. We use it here because it kind of looks like a stage, even though it's not. This program could be done with one of the actual stages, but this is the one we're going to use here. So I'm going to click on chalkboard, click OK, and now I've got this new backdrop. Okay. Usually when you add a backdrop, you don't need the blank backdrop anymore. So I usually, once I've added a new backdrop, I go ahead and delete the blank one. And so now we just have our new backdrop. Okay. This program can really be made with any single sprite. I'm gonna do it the way it was originally designed in the book. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to delete this sprite. So a couple different ways you can delete it. I'm just going to right click. If you're using a trackpad, you can do that. On an Apple, you can do a 2-finger click. And I'm just going to delete the sprite. But now we need to add a new sprite to the program. So what I'm doing here is where it says new sprite, I want to get a new sprite from the library. And the monkey little guy we're going to add, he's an animal. So we'll scroll down here, and we're going to use monkey number 2. Okay. So going to add him to the scene. And then I'm going to go ahead and move him down so he looks like he's actually on the floor. All right. Put him about right there. All right. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is, we need to add the music file. So with programs like this, anytime I'm adding a sound that, I like to add sounds where they feel appropriate in the program. If it felt like it was a sound that, the sprite character was using, I might add it to the sprite. But for background music, it makes sense to add the background music to the backdrop. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do here. So I'm going to click on the backdrop, and then I'm going to go to sounds. Now it comes with a pop sound. We're not going to need that, so there's no need to keep it in the program. I'm going to go ahead and erase that. But we're going to add a new sound from the library. And the one we're going to add is, let's see here. This is a music loop. And I'm trying to remember what this one is called. Let me check my notes here. Oh yeah, it's the eggs. This is this kind of march kind of thing here. When you're making this program, if you want to add something that's the dance is a popular one. There's a couple other good ones, but I'm just going to go with the original. Going to go ahead and add eggs, and so now it's added to the backdrop, and now we're going to go ahead and play the music. So since the backdrop has that sound effect, I'm going to add this to the backdrop's script area. All right. Everything in this program is going to be triggered when the flag is clicked. Once that flag is clicked, everything's going to happen. There's no real interactivity here. That's something you could add if you want to explore some things, but for now, everything's going to start when the flag is clicked, and everything just is run on a loop. Okay. Once we start it, everything will loop and continue. Now, the book has an interesting way of looping sounds, which is we go to the sound tab here, and they use this play sound script or block. And the way play sound works is it starts the sound and it goes immediately to the next block. So if I just put that in the forever loop and try that, it's going to cause some problems. It's not going to play properly because it's trying to play itself constantly. So let's take that out of there. And the way they suggest doing this in the original textbook I got this from is I attach a wait block to the play sound, and then I go and look, how long is the sound? Well, the sound is 15.25 seconds. So I changed this wait block to 15.25. Okay. And then now it plays the sound, and then it'll wait, and then once the sound is done, once this time has passed, that's when it repeats. So that's one way to do it, and I think there's, it's valuable to sort of think that through and why that works that way. They've already got a block made, so I like to do it with just one block. I'm just going to play the egg sound until done. So this block and these two blocks together will essentially do the exact same thing. Okay, this block just does it all in one step. So I'm just going to throw that in there. I'm going to get rid of these blocks so I don't need them anymore. Now when I play it, once again, it'll play until it's done, and then it'll repeat back to the top and play it again. All right. So the sound is set and ready to go. All right. Now what we need to do is we need to get our little monkey dude here dancing. Okay. Now this is Mr. Wiggly. It's often a good idea to, once you add a sprite, especially if you're going to add multiple sort of similar sprites and you know what's happening with them, it's not a bad idea to change the name. So once again, I didn't come up with a name for this program. I'm not sure why the author of the book chose the name Mr. Wiggly. It's a little awkward. But so I'm going to go ahead and rename him that. Descriptive names for variables and sprites and things is usually a good idea. So to change the name of the sprite, I just clicked on the little eye here on the sprite in the menu here, and then just retyped in the name. The name doesn't have a ton of effect. It just reminds you, oh yeah, this is what we're getting to dance. Okay. So the last thing we need to do here now is we need to actually make the dance. Now, the way this is set up, and you can see it here, is essentially we're going to move him to the right, then move him to the left past the center, and then move him back to the right, back to the center. So the idea is we move him right, we move him all the way to the left, and then we move him back to the middle. All right. So first things first, this is all going to happen when the flag is clicked, and we're going to put this in the forever loop, just like the song. Okay. So as soon as this goes, it just moves and happens. All right. So our event is when the flag is clicked, and we're going to loop this forever. The next step, let me take a look at some things here. Oops. The next step here is let's get the movements happening. So what's going to happen is we're going to move him, okay, and we're going to move him 25 steps at a time. Now, one thing that is important to make sure is to make sure he's pointing in the right direction. Now, a sprite, when you add it, should default to be pointing in 90 degrees, which is what you want. And when you use the move however many steps block, it's going to move in the direction he's pointing. Okay, so right here we can see he's pointing 90 degrees, so he's going to move to the right when we use that block. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have it just wait a second. And then we're going to want to do the same thing again. Okay, so he's going to move, wait, and he's going to move again before he moves back the other direction. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually right-click to duplicate, and I just want to duplicate these two blocks, so not the forever loop. So I'm going to click on this first block, move 25 steps. I'm going to duplicate it. Now I've got the move and the wait together, and place it right below. So now he's going to move twice. So he's going to move essentially 2 times to the right. So now let's move him back 2 times to the left. So I'm going to duplicate now these 4 blocks together, place them here, but now I want to change this to -25, and this one as well to -25. So I'll move to the right and move to the left. Now, if I just did this, this would move him to the right and then move him back to center. But I actually want to get him a little bit further than that. I want him to move to the left, the same amount he moved to the right. So I just need 2 more of these move -25 blocks. So I'm going to duplicate here. Now I have 4 more of these. So now he's going to move to the right twice, move to the left 4 times, and then we need him to move back to the center. So we're going to move him 2 times back to the right. So I need 2 more of these move blocks, plug them in here, and we'll make these last 2 +25. Okay, so I did a little copying and pasting, and that's something that's, when you're programming, when you're repeating code like this, it's an easy way to do it. Okay, rather than dragging and dropping and filling in the 25s, just copy what you need, paste it in. You can put in each one individually if you want, totally valid, but we can also save time where we need to. Now, if I just do this, and just so I'm don't need to hear the music right now. I'm going to disable that. Just want to see if this move works. Okay, so he's going to move to the right, move back to the left, move all the way to the left, then move back to the right to the center. Okay, and then it keeps going. Moves to the right, moves to the left to center, and then further left, and then back to center, and then that's where it repeats. And if you want to see how that works, we can stop it, and you can take all this out of the forever loop and see, okay, if we do this, does he move, right, left, right, and then end up back in the center? And we can see that he does. Okay. So, a couple different things you can do to test and see how this all works. Okay. So, we've got a little movement happening. Okay. There's sound. I'm going to, I'll put the sound back in here when we're ready to go again. And then the last thing we do is, once he's done his little movement, his little dance, now we're going to have him sort of blush a little bit, so change his color effect, and also ask the question, should I do this again? All right. The interesting thing is that we're just going to have him say something with a little bubble. So all that, the say and thinking, that's all sort of in this in the looks blocks. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is at the end here, we're going to have him change color, okay? And I use this block, change color effect by 25, so that each time through his color is going to change a little bit again, okay? And then I'm going to have him, let's have him think the little thought here. So, and let's see, what we're going to have him say is, one more time, okay? So we'll leave the in there that he's thinking, and we're going to say one more time. Oops. Exclamation point. All right. So let's see what that looks like. So he does his move, comes back, he'll come back to the middle, change color, say one more time, then he goes at it again. Okay. So notice it looked like these happen almost simultaneously. Anytime you add blocks and you don't add weights between them, they happen almost at the same time. It's a real quick transition between blocks if you don't put any wait times in. So it looks like he's changing color and saying something at pretty much the same time. Okay. Now, because of where his color effect starts, he's not really blushing red, but it is what it is. Okay. Now, when you stop it, you'll notice I stopped it and his color effect goes back. I think in Scratch, the color effect will usually reset when you stop it. But if you've noticed, I stopped it here sort of in the middle of the dance, and he's not really back in the middle. Now, this is something you want to be really careful about is anytime you run the program, you want it to look the same every time. Okay. So one thing that I like to do is at the beginning of my programs, I like to make sure everything's reset so that if someone does stop it and then start it again, we get things back to the start. Now, one thing you can do is, right now he's not really in the middle. You can see his x coordinate is at 19. We know he's going to be a little bit lower in the y coordinate. But what you want to do is place him sort of where you feel is, looks centered. You could just set the x to 0 if you want, but I feel like, a little bit of wiggle room is fine. And so you can see that the backdrop itself is not totally centered the way they made this. The star, if I line him up right with the star, he's a little off center too. So I'm just going to put him where I think is appropriate. And you'll notice anytime I move him, this go to XY, the coordinates change to match where his current location is. So once I'm satisfied with where he is and think, yeah, that's where I want him to start every time, I simply add that to the top here. So now, no matter what happens, someone played it and then stopped it and then played it again. I know every time it starts, he's going to go here. And if you're not sure if this color is going to reset, you can also go into looks and say, okay, just to be sure, when we restart it, let's set the color effect back to 0. So we know we're sort of starting from 0, okay? Starting from what I consider the middle of the stage, and color effects reset, and we should be good to go. So now let's see if this all comes together. So I'm going to add the sound back in, just reattach it to its hat block here, to its event block. Everything looks good here. So now I'm going to play it, and we'll watch him dance. So, as we can see, the music's looping, his dance effect is looping. Now, one thing I don't like about this program is that the dance loop and the sound loop don't really coincide. So, he dances, he does 8 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that takes 8 seconds, and then he thinks for 2 seconds. So that's a total of 10 seconds. But as we know, our sound takes about 15 seconds, so it doesn't really line up. So that's something if you want to make this program, you may want to consider that, changing the wait times or maybe adding some more movements so that the movements coincide with the sound. Or you could say, okay, I want to keep the movements the same. I want to keep this at about 10 seconds, and you could look for a sound loop that will that's 10 seconds long. Okay, that's certainly something to consider. Okay, so once and that's something I like to do with a lot of my assignments. A lot of things that I do is, okay, I've got the original program, so now what can I add to make it my own? Now for this, I just wanted to do sort of the basic thing. I don't think resetting it was in the original program, but I think this is just a really good thing to get in practice of doing. When I start things, where do I want things to start? It's always a good idea to sort of be thinking in those terms. So the last thing I want to do is, with Scratch, anything you make, you're gonna share. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the project page now that the coding is done, and I'm gonna add some instructions. I'm just gonna say, click the green flag to start the dance. And then I'm just going to give some notes here. So this is, as I said, this program is from the book Scratch Programming for Teens by Jerry Lee Ford. Technically, it's Scratch 2.0, Programming for Teens. This is the book that I used when I got my master's degree. I took a class on how to do Scratch so that I could teach Scratch, and I use a lot of its programs in the courses I teach at the high school I work at. So, and then once this is all set, okay, I feel like, okay, the program works. I've got everything set up here. Now I share it, so it's out there. So. So the program's done, but the nice thing is that anything can be edited and added as we go forward. So yeah, we've tested it, and it seems to work.